Hello, welcome to GDW 2 Tutorial 6, Character Controller. Today we will be creating a controller script for our Mario character to allow him to move and jump. In the future, we will be handling death and collisions in this character controller as well. However, today we will just be adding the essentials for movement. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is click on the link that I've put in the description, and we're going to download a Unity package. Once you click the link, it should take you here. You just need to right click on this level1.unity package and click download. I already have it downloaded, so I will not click it again. But you click download and it will download, and then once you do that, we're going to open up our Unity project from last week. Okay, so here we are, and the past 5 tutorials have been mostly menu creation and things with UI and things like that. So today is the first day we will be starting to actually create our gameplay for the game. So the first thing you want to do is import the package that we downloaded. So we're going to go to Assets. We're going to go Import Custom Package, and you're gonna find where you downloaded and click on the level 1 package. And this will pop up, this window, and it just should be the grid prefab, and you're going to import it. And once it's imported, you will see grid right here. So the next thing we're going to do is actually create a new scene that we can put the level in to play. So we're going to go into our scenes folder, and we're going to right click, we're going to create, and we're going to find scene. And then we're going to call it world 1-1, because that is the level we're going to create, and let's go into it. So right now it is empty, but if we go into our prefabs and take this grid which we just downloaded, we can put it right here just like this, and now we have our full level 1 ready to go. Everything has colliders on it already, and all the level is created for us to use. And if we want to edit it, if we ever wanted to edit it, we can just open up our tile palette and then edit it that way, but we will not be needing to do that in our tutorials. So quickly before we add our Mario into the game, we're going to go into our main camera and actually place it at the right location. So we're going to put the camera at -3 and the size will be 5. And then we're going to go into our game view, and we're going to change this free aspect into a 1610 aspect, so it looks more like the real game. And now we have our camera here. And then we can take our grid and actually place it exactly in the correct location, which will be 0, 0. Perfect. Now we have everything placed perfectly, and we can add Mario in. So if we go into our sprite sheets folder, we can scroll and find our small Mario sprite sheet right here. And let's just find a basic sprite to put him in right now. Perfect. So we got a little small Mario right here. And right now, if we place him in front of this grass, it actually goes behind it. So what we want to do is take this Mario sprite and change his order layer into 2 so it stays in front. And then we'll name him Mario, not with a capital A. Perfect. And let's just place him in the right spot quickly. So we're going to put him at -9.5 and -3.5. Perfect. Now he is in the right spot. The next thing we need to do is add a component, and we're going to add a box collider 2D onto him. And then we're going to add another component, and it's going to be a rigid body 2D, just like that. Now that we have those components on, we can actually edit our box collider a little bit. So if we click edit, we can make it perfectly fit our Mario, which it actually already does, so we do not need to edit this at all. Perfect. And then we can just place him back where he was, just like this. And for our game purposes, since it is a tile map based game, what we can do is we can actually turn on this snapping tool to allow us to always be snapping to a specific tile. So let's say we wanted to move anything. Let's say once we have enemies, we can, instead of having to put the math in and the numbers in their position, we can snap it to a specific tile whenever we want to. So now that that's done, we have to go into our constraints in our rigid body 2D and make sure we check off freeze rotation Z. And we're going to change his gravity scale to 6 for now. And when we create our controller, we're going to make it so we have inspector values that we can change obviously in the inspector. And we're going to have it so you guys can make Mario's movement and jumping feel how you want. Let's say you don't want it to be exactly like the actual Mario game. You can change his movement a little bit if you want to. But I have my own personal values that I've put in. So I keep gravity scale at 6 for now, but this is up to your own personal preference. So now we can actually start by creating our scripts. So in our scripts folder, we're actually going to create a new folder first, and we're going to call it gameplay. And in here, we're going to create another new folder and call it Mario. And in the Mario folder, we're going to create our script, and we can call it MarioController, just like that. And then once it loads up, we can open it in Visual Studio. And once it loads, we can start coding. And it's on my other monitor, so I will drag it across, and here it is. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is create our variables that we're going to need to control Mario. So first we're going to create some serialized fields. The first one is going to be a float called run force. And then we can control D, so we can copy the line. The second one's going to be a float called jump force. And the third one's going to be a max speed, because we don't want Mario to always be increasing in speed infinitely and be able to go faster than the speed of light, because Mario can't normally do that. And then under this, we want to do a transform trans. Oh, I spelled trans wrong. And we want to do a rigid body 2D, and I will call it body. And under that, we're going to have a float for run input, and we are going to have a bool for jump input. Oops, I cannot spell today. There we go. So those are the variables that we're going to need, and then we can start filling out our functions. So our start function, we're going to trans equals get component. We've done this part before. This is just getting the transform component from our Mario game object. And then we want to do the same thing with body. We do get component and then rigid body 2D, just like that. So now we have both of those. And then we want to go into our update function, and we can start getting our input in update. And remember, from our GDW1, we don't ever want to put physics updates into our update function. We actually have a separate built-in function called fixed update, and that's where we put all of our physics updates in, because it is a fixed delta time every frame, so it works better with physics. So first we're going to fill out our update function with our input. So the first thing we want to do is set run input to be equal to input.getAxis and horizontal. We have done this before as well, so this shouldn't be new to you. This, again, just as a refresher, this line gets a value based on a key input from the user. So if the user is holding the D key or the right arrow key, it will give a +1 value, and if they're holding A or the left arrow, it'll give a -1 value. So it just gets the input of the horizontal axis, basically. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make an if statement, and we're going to do if run input is equal to 0. Then we want to set is running. Actually, this is not something we need right now. Sorry about that. But what we do need is to get our jump input. So if input.getKey, and we're going to do keycode.w, because that will be our jump key. We're going to set jump input to true. And then under that, we're simply just going to do an else, and we're going to set jump input to false. because if they are not holding the W key, we don't want jump input to be on. These next few lines, in my opinion, just make Mario's movement feel a little better. These aren't necessary to allow him to move, but in my opinion, I like having it because it makes it feel more like the real Mario game. So we're going to do if run input is 0 and if body.velocity.y is 0, we are going to set body.drag to be 3. So what this is doing is it's checking if the user isn't inputting any run value and the player isn't moving up or down, we're going to increase the linear drag of the body so he doesn't slide across the level infinitely, basically. And then under that, we're going to do an else, and we're going to do body.drag equals 1, because that is the default value of the linear drag. So that is actually everything we need to do in our update function right now. And then we can create our fixed update function, sorry. And I'm going to get rid of this private keyword. And now, in here, we're going to do an if statement for if run input is not 0, then we are going to simply call our run function, which we haven't created yet, but we will be creating. And under that, we are going to do if jump input and is grounded, which we don't have yet, but again, we will be adding. I didn't add that variable yet. And, oops, did I do something? Oh, not exclamation marks. I want and signs. There we go. And in here, we're going to call a jump function, which again, we do not have yet, but we will be adding. Perfect. So that is actually everything we need in our fixed update function. And the next thing we can do is add the isGrounded boolean, because we didn't have that before. So we can do bool isGrounded equal, we don't need the equals because it's always false as default. Perfect. So that is no longer a red line. And then we can add our run and our jump function. So first we can add run. So let's do void run and open close brackets. And then we are going to start our function. So the first thing we're going to do is create an if statement. And in the if statement, we're going to do if mathf.abs, which is gets the absolute value of whatever's in the bracket. So body.velocity.x. And if the body.velocity.x is greater or equal to the max speed, we simply want to return. Because if we're already equal to the max speed, we don't want to increase the speed further. So we're just returning instead of doing the next few lines. So speaking of the next few lines, let's add them right now. So if run input is greater than 0, we are going to do body.addForce, and inside the brackets, we're going to do a vector2.write times the run force, and then the second parameter is going to be force mode 2D dot force, just like that. And under that, we're going to do trans dot rotation equals quaternion dot Euler 0 180 0, just like that. And then we are going to copy this and put it underneath, and we're going to change this greater to into an less than. Sorry, that was not English. We're going to change this greater than into a less than sign, and we're going to change this vector2.right into a vector2.left, and we're going to change this 180 into a 0, and that's everything we need to change. So this basically is saying if run input is positive, we want to move to the right. If run input is negative, we want to move to the left, and that is all we need in our run function. So now we can go and create our jump function. And the jump function has a lot less lines than the run function because we are just adding a single force, which will be our jump force. So we want to do body.addForce again, just like we did in run. This time we're going to do vector2.up because obviously a jump moves upwards. We're going to multiply it by the jump force, And this time the force mode isn't going to be force, it's going to be impulse, because a jump is like an impulse force moving upwards, like it's being shot upwards in a sense. And then we're going to set isGrounded to false in here, just so we know if grounded is ever true and we jump, obviously we're not going to be grounded anymore, so we want to set it to false. And the last thing we need to do in our MarioController script is we're going to create our onCollisionEnter2D function. And this is where we're going to check if the player is grounded or not. And we're going to set grounded to true if it is grounded. So we're going to create a for loop. And in there we're going to do int I equals 0, semicolon, I is less than collision dot contacts dot length, and we're going to do I plus plus. And then inside the for loop we're going to do an if statement to check if the player is on top of the ground, because if we check if the player is just running into a wall, obviously that doesn't make a difference to if it's grounded or not, because you can be touching a wall whether you're on the ground or in the sky. So we want to make sure that the contact that's being detected is we are on top of the collision. So what we do with that is we do if collision dot contacts at I dot normal dot y is greater than 0.5, then we set isGrounded to true. And that's all we need to do. So what this line does is it checks the normal of the y value of the normal of the contact between Mario and whatever it's colliding with. And if Mario is on top of whatever it's colliding with, we're going to set isGrounded to true and allow him to jump again. So that is all we needed to add to this script. So if we hop back in to the game, just like this, we can go into Mario and we can add the script to Mario just like this. Now that it's added, we can scroll down and see it in here, and we can change all of these values. So I'm going to put run force to be 8, I'm going to put jump force to be 26, and my max speed is also 8. And now we should be able to click play and see if it works. There's actually one thing that I forgot before we test if it works, is I'm going to create a new folder quickly in here called materials. And in materials, we're going to create a 2D physics material, and we're going to call it Mario. Oh, I spelled that wrong, but that's okay. And we're just going to set friction to 0, because we don't want friction to affect our Mario. So if we go into our rigid body, we just drag our Mario into the material section, and now we have that. Perfect. And now we can test it out. So let's click play and see if we can move around. If I hold D, it allows me to move to the right. If I hold A, it allows me to move to the left, and I can jump. And I can't infinitely jump if I spam the jump button because of our isGrounded check. So it works perfectly. If I move on to this thing, I can land on it and I can get off. And if I go under it, like the real game, if I come up from under, I don't collide, and I only collide when I'm on top of it. So, perfect. We can exit play mode. And that's actually everything we needed to do for today. So, let's get right into the recap.